All right, what's going on, gang? It's Keg. It's Keg back with another Run Pure Bets UFC Fight Night video. This week we got a banger main event: Corey Sandhagen against Yadong. Oh, it should be a really enjoyable main event. So hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. The boys don't ask for much here. All they ask is for that. If you're a hardcore recreational bettor and you want to get into a Discord and read articles, get subscriber videos, and get daily picks, then head over to Run Pure Bets, and it's about $60 a month. It's well worth it. The boys crush. They've been doing it for 2 years. So, yeah, check it out. So let's try to find the winners on these cards. We're going to start it off with Nicholas Moda against Cameron Van Camp. So, yeah, I mean, Nick Moda's didn't look good at all against Jim Miller. He just doesn't carry the necessary speed for the division, in my opinion. Whether it's his hand speed, whether it's his footwork, he's just slow in the cage all around when I look at him against other people at the weight class. And like I said on the video that I did on Friday night on my YouTube channel, it's a really bad look in 2022 to lose 10 minutes of striking exchanges against Jim Miller. Like, that's just an awful look. And it made me look in Nicholas Moda in a completely different way. Now, I initially didn't mind him. I think he was on The Ultimate Fighter years ago, and I didn't think he was that bad. But in terms of, like, what's he good at, I guess he carries some power for the weight class. I think his boxing fundamentals look okay. But since that Jim Miller fight, the kid is a total fade for me. He's hard for me to back with my money right now. Cameron Van Camp, he loves to bang. Took a big step up in class in his last fight against Andre Fiallo. And he had Andre Fiallo hurt early in that fight, but he wasn't able to put him away. If he wins that fight and he finishes Fiallo, what would the odds be in this fight? How would we be looking at Cameron Van Camp? Probably slightly differently than the public perceives him to be right now. He's got a couple knockout losses, but that isn't bad at all for 21 fights. Like I said, it's going to happen. Sometimes you get caught. But his strength is on the ground for sure. He's a high-level grappler. He's shown that. So I think if the fight gets to the ground, he probably has the advantage here. Definitely. The odds open offshore, Moda minus 235. Van Camp has taken some money. A lot of money, actually. He's down to plus 135. When I was doing my notes, he was like plus 165. So he's taken a ton of money. At plus 170, I think even last night he was plus 160. And I leaned dog or pass at that price. I thought the value was on Van Camp because Moda hasn't impressed me at all. And I don't see why Van Camp isn't live to win the fight. Now, at plus 135, you've definitely lost some value, for sure. So I would probably pass the fight now. But if you are going to bet, I would still take the dog because I think this fight's a coin flip. So that's where I'm at. Tony Gravely against Jabid Basharat. Tony Gravely has the one thing that you really want when you're backing people in MMA, and that's an excellent wrestling base. He averages about 6.5 takedowns per 15 minutes, which is really good. But he also can have you worried because his chin has been cracked a few times. He has been on rubbery legs more than once, and he's been able to battle through it for the most part. But it's a concern. On the feet, he's got power. His technique seems sound, but he does struggle to get in the range because he's a smaller fighter. Jabid Basharat, I think that he's the better striker here, hands down. I think he's better at range. I think he fights behind a better jab. He attacks the body more than Grabbley does. He's solid in the clinch. So I think I give him the striking edge. He's always in the pocket, always in your face. But the one thing that worries me is because he's always moving forward, I think that it's going to be easy for Tony Grabbley to level change and either get a double leg takedown in open space or get like a high crotch and just drag him to the ground. So that's a concern. But if the fight stays on the feet, I think that it's Basharat's fight to lose. But I do think that if Grabbley can get the early takedowns, it'll go a long way to him winning this fight in the end. But I'm going to pick Basharat here. As far as an angle, the line opened to pick offshore, and Basharat sits around, what is he, minus 165? Minus 170 now. Again, when I was doing my notes, he was minus 150. I would be looking towards Basharat here. And if I was going to back him, it would probably be by finish inside the distance. The number that I had seen was like plus 150. You could still get plus 140 at DK. Check around, shop around. But if I was going to make a play in the fight, I would probably be looking at Basharat inside the distance. But it is scary going up against a wrestler that's as good as Tony Grabbley, so be careful with that. Maria Agapova against Jillian Robertson. So this is my second favorite fight on the card from a betting perspective. I think that this is a true clash of styles. And I think that Jillian Robertson is much better than people give her credit for because her overall wrestling and grappling game on the mat against this weight class has been phenomenal. Like, let's not mince words. Let's call spade a spade. She has been phenomenal. And she has proven that if you give her enough time to work and she gets an early takedown, you are going to either get tapped out by strangulation or you're going to get your arm ripped off. She has shown that she's that good when she gets somebody down early. And it takes somebody with top-notch defense to be able to avoid that. And that is not Maria Agapova. Now, Jillian Robertson, in terms of striking, her striking is, to be kind to her, a work in progress, right? But it's good enough for her to close distance, get her hands on you, and work the takedown. And that's really, at the end of the day, all she needs to do in order to be successful, especially in this fight. Now, she can improve her takedown game. I don't think it's great, Jillian Robertson. I think that if it was like top notch, she'd be a title contender. If it was top notch, it's not. So, I like her a lot. I think she's an incredibly underrated fighter in the division. So, now she's going to fight Maria Agapova, who is the complete opposite fighter. She's all about the stand-up. She has fight-ending power for the weight class, definitely. She's huge for the weight class. And she's always moving forward. She's always aggressive. Her hand speed in the pocket is on point. She throws punches and bunches. Her combinations are solid. She cuts good angles. there's a ton to like about Maria Agapova on the feet. But she, if you watched her last fight, was exposed for how bad that her takedown defense is. And it's pretty bad. And she has not, let's say she was 100% healthy, which she's not, and I'll get to that in a minute. If she was 100% healthy, I still don't think that Maria Agapova would have made the necessary changes that she would need to avoid Jillian Robertson's chain takedown attempts, which will be coming constantly. So the side piece, which kind of puts it over the top for me, is Maria Agapova shouldn't be fighting. She took this fight on short notice. She needs knee surgery, but she can't afford knee surgery. And she's in such a bad way financially that she had to take this fight on short notice with one leg, basically, because she needs money. And she was already at such a big disadvantage stylistically. I just don't see how she doesn't get tapped out. I just don't see it. I think it probably happens in the first round. I think it certainly happens in the first 2 rounds. So the odds open offshore, Robertson plus 110. That line has flipped, and she is now minus 155. So I bet that I actually have 3 units on this fight. I have a unit on Jillian Robertson money line at minus 145. I've got a half unit on Jillian Robertson round 1 sub at plus 310. And a half unit on Jillian Robertson by sub in round 1 or 2 at plus 165. And I have one more unit on a parlay that I'll get to her and somebody else later on in the card. But for now, all you need to know is it was always Jillian Robertson. Now, don't get me wrong. Maria Agapova has knockout power. She could theoretically knock out Jillian Robertson. But considering that she's basically on one leg, there's a much better chance, in my opinion, that Jillian Robertson will get the takedown before Maria Agapova will put her to bed. So that's why I like Jillian Robertson here. Trey Ogden against Daniel Zellhuber. By the way, if you want to tail something real quick, I'm on Western Kentucky plus 10, Western Kentucky team total over 30.5. Just throwing that out there. You could probably still get on that team total. So I had to do research on Zellhuber because I wasn't familiar with him before this week, aside from his Contender Series fight last year. I didn't recognize him. He has fought in Lux before. He has fought in Combate before. And I didn't really recognize him. But Gavin he's been asking me all week, what do I think about him? What do I think about him? So I watched him. What I like about the kid the most is the fact that he's 23 years old and he's a baby and he's really raw. And, you know, in terms of his actual progression, he already looks pretty good, but he's still a baby for sure. Especially when you think about fight IQ and that. But he's dynamic. I like him. Dynamic on the feet. He fights behind a great jab. He fights from range and in the pocket, and he targets the body. He uses his kicks well. He throws volume. So I like him. There's a lot to like. He'll have a 5-inch reach advantage, and that will probably help him considering his style. And he's big for the division. But most of all was his chin. If you go back and you watch that Contender Series fight against Lucas Almeida hit Zellhuber with bombs that would have put a lot of people down. And don't be afraid to score that touchdown, Western Kentucky. Don't be afraid. Sorry. So he got hit with absolute bombs. And he laughed at Almeida, and he kept walking forward. I think that's going to help him a lot in this fight. So I like his chin. I like his striking. I love the fact that he's young and he's got a world of potential. As for Trey Ogden, he's one of James Krause's projects over at Glory. He had some success on the regional scene. He was the former Fury FC champion at this weight class. And listen, James Ogden is well-rounded. He's a legitimate black belt. He's got great takedowns, a solid wrestling base, and on the feet, the kid is serviceable. He's okay. Solid kicks. He also likes to target the body. He's solid on the counter with that check hook. And although he did lose that debut to Jordan Levitt, in what was an extremely weird fight, where the fight was basically won on leg kicks, top control wrestling, and scrambles. There wasn't any real strikes thrown. Now, he lost that fight, but when you go back and you watch that fight against Jordan Levitt, I thought he probably won that fight. So, all in all, I think Ogden is average but well-rounded. The odds open offshore is Zellhuber minus 240, and he is now a $4 favorite. The hype train has begun. Clint, what's up, buddy? I'll send you an invite if you feel like coming on and talking the main card real quick. In the end, listen, I think in the end, this kid's more dynamic, and I trust him to shell out more damage, but more importantly, be able to absorb more damage than Trey Ogden. But you can't take him on the money line. So it's not appealing. It's really not that appealing to take Zellhuber by KO. Now, the prices in the offshore market this week it was crazy. I said on the last night's show, I would love to talk to Dave Mason this week and ask him what he was thinking when he set these prop lines at BetOnline this week, because they were way off what they should have been. They were way off the legal market. And ordinarily, they're somewhere around each other, but not this week. Not this week. You could have got that Zellhuber KO, I think, at like plus 180. I think that Ogden's a pretty tough kid, and I think he can probably go the full 15. If I was going to bet something, it would probably be the unanimous decision prop on Zellhuber at plus 240, because I don't mind having a $4 favorite at a plus 240 price tag. And I think Ogden can probably hold on here, even if he loses a 30-27 dominating decision. He might be able to hold on here. So I think people are just going to snap bet the Zellhuber KO. I am not going to do that. Not at that price. I would be leaning towards the unanimous decision here. aside from that, if Gavin or one of the guys on the live show can get me on something, I don't know, maybe. But that's where I'm at. Loma Luke Boonme against Denise Gomes. I love Loma Luke Boonme. I'm going to get made fun of. I don't care. I'm a Loma Mark. I'm a Loma Stan. I'm all about her. I love her. Her striking game is legit. She has the edge in striking against most fighters in the division in this weight class. I think her footwork is on point. Her angles are great. She throws punches in bunches. She uses her kicks well. And for a little girl, she's got some pop. But her big liability is that she's an atom weight. That's her issue. She should really be fighting at 105 pounds. And she's fighting at strawweight because the UFC doesn't have an atomweight division. And sometimes she can get out-grappled and outpowered by physical wrestlers that can grapple. But in the clinch, surprisingly, like, she's pretty good and tough because she uses her posture really well to her advantage. So I there's a lot to like about Loma. As for Gomes, I think that she looked competitive on the feet. She's an actual strawweight, so she'll probably have the strength and maybe the power advantage here on Loma, but she's nowhere near the technical striker that Loma Luke Boonme is, because from what I saw, Gomes was nowhere near the level of Loma's Muay Thai base at all. But the odds open offshore, Luke Boonme minus 190. She's taking a bit of money. I'm going to pick Loma to win the fight because if it's going to be on the feet for 15 minutes, which I expect it should be, then I'm going to take Loma in a striking battle against a lot of girls in this weight class. But obviously, you guys know that we bet these split props. This split prop in particular, I like a lot because Loma is always in close fights. She has a couple splits on her record. Gomes looked competitive enough in the stand-up game where it could be relatively close, and that 4-1 price tag to get the split prop home is a fair price, I think, in this one. So I bet it's slightly heavier than I normally do. But aside from that, like, if you didn't want to bet the split decision prop here, I would probably go with like Loma by unanimous decision at like plus 110, something like that. But I like the split prop here. I think we're live, boys. Aspen Ladd, Sarah McCann got canceled. Thank fucking Christ. Trevin Giles against Louis Cosi. So Trevin Giles has fought in multiple weight classes in the UFC and on the regional scene. Now, this is his second straight fight at 170 pounds. Not really great at anything, but he can do a few things okay. Master of nothing. One of those jack of all trades kind of guys. I would say that his strong suit probably is boxing in the pocket, albeit not elite, and his offensive and defensive wrestling, which isn't that bad. But again, far from elite. Fight IQ, I think, has been slightly below the weight class average, but his cardio holds up relatively well. Louis Cosi, now this is an interesting fighter on the card. He went back to the drawing board, I think, to tear himself down and rebuild himself. And I think that's why we have not seen him in the cage in 2 years. But he looked very good 2 years ago in his debut in the first round against Sasha Palatnikov. He had him hurt badly. He tried to finish the fight in the first round, but he either gassed out from just lack of cardio, or he had a really bad adrenaline dump in that fight. And that's the question in this fight, because here's the thing. Cosi had never been in a fight that went longer than 4 minutes prior to that Palatnikov fight 2 years ago. And what happened in that fight? He dumped in the first round. He had Palatnikov hurt badly, had absolutely nothing left. The bell rang for round 2. He gets finished. So, Louis Cosi looks like he's got really bad cardio from everything that we've seen from this kid. Now, he's had 2 years to work on himself. Could his cardio be on point? It could. Could it not be on point? And we see exactly what we saw? Yeah, we could. So I think you have to go in with your own fight script of exactly how you think this fight's going to go down and bet accordingly. So what I'm going to do, I think there's a chance that Cosi can finish Trevin Giles in the first round, because Cosi does have power. And Trevin Giles has been hurt before. But if that doesn't happen and the bell rings to start round 2, then you have to think, based on everything that we've seen, Trevin Giles becomes an overwhelming favorite in rounds 2 and 3 to possibly get the finish because of how bad that cardio has looked before. So I think that I don't like this fight from a betting perspective. But if I was going to bet it, I would take a small piece of Trevin Giles in round 2 or 3 by KO at plus 470. Because I think I would go in with the game plan of let Giles survive the first round, and then he's probably going to have an edge. So that would be the way that I would go in this fight. Damon Jackson, Pat Sabatini, great scrap. Let's go, boys. Get me home, Western Kentucky. 2 guys that have won a combined 10 of the last 11 fights in the UFC. Now, for Jackson, his lone loss the last 6 fights was against Ilia Topuria, which makes sense. Ilia Topuria was by far the best fighter that Damon Jackson had fought during that run. His striking isn't awful. I think it's okay. But where he really excels is his ground game, his control game, and his overall BJJ game, because it is legitimate. I mean, he is really, really good at putting people in the positions that he wants them to be in and then working for a finish. Let me pull up Sherdog real quick, but I want to say that he's got like 17 wins by sub. Let's see what Damon Jackson has. $15 by sub of the 21 wins. But so yeah, I mean, I think that his striking is okay, but like I said, where he really excels are in transitions and scrambles and position. Now, Pat Sabatini, who was another former Cage Fury champ at this weight class, He has been a takedown machine lately. He's got 11 takedowns the last 6 rounds in the UFC. But this is definitely a step up in competition for Sabatini. If you take a look at the level of fighter that he has been fighting lately, definitely a step up in Damon Jackson. Now, Sabatini's another guy, an okay striker, but just like Jackson, it's not the best thing he does. He's a heavy takedown guy. He's a heavy top control wrestling guy, and he looks for opportunities to finish you on the ground, right? Now, who wins that battle of control will ultimately win the fight, in my opinion. So the odds open offshore Sabatini minus 225. Right now, he sits at about minus one. Where is he at? He was minus 180 going into the week. I think we should have hit this Western Kentucky team total over again. Oh my God. Was that an interception in the end zone? Here we go. That touchdown would have put us over the total. Brutal. All right, so the current odds on Sabatini are minus 205. Jesus Christ. The comeback on him is plus 175 on Damon Jackson. Now, I've been on Pat Sabatini every fight almost since joining the roster. But I do think that this is a very, 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 very close fight. From a money line perspective, 100% you're taking Damon Jackson or you're passing the fight. The higher this money line goes, like the more interesting that Damon Jackson becomes. But I'm going to pick Pat Sabatini to win the fight. I think if he gets the takedowns and he uses some ground and pound, I think he should win the rounds as long as he's careful on the ground and doesn't get subbed. I think how to get on Sabatini's hard, though. I don't know. I'm going to lean by decision, but he can win multiple ways. I'm not going to bet the fight, but if Damon Jackson gets up to like plus 200, I'm probably going to pull the trigger on him because that number's just wrong. I don't know if he's going to take that much money, but I'll keep an eye on it. Aside from that, though, that's it. Anthony Hernandez against Marc-Andre Barriault. So Fluffy Hernandez, relatively new to MMA still, only 11 fights as a pro. He's only 28 years old, but he has looked very good in the 5 fights for the UFC. He's 3-2, but aside from that Kevin Holland fight, he has been extremely competitive in every fight. And he's got phenomenal pressure in the cage. He's got a gas tank, I think, that can go a full 3 rounds, which Gavin disagrees with. He thinks that he's got about 11 minutes of cardio in him. I think he's got about 15. He's got power for the weight class. He's got wicked elbows in the pocket. And on the ground, he's just a machine. He will not stop chaining takedowns until he gets you where he wants you. So I think that there is a lot to like about Fluffy Hernandez. For Marc-Andre Barriault, the best thing that I can say about this dude is he's done a really good job of making a career from being incredibly tough and crazy durable. He's another fighter that's got a good gas tank like Hernandez. Gavin rates his gas tank higher. I might rate his gas tank higher, but I think that they can both go 3 rounds. And at the end of the day, I think he's a meat and potatoes wrestle boxer that's just crazy durable, really. And that's basically his game. Now, in the last 2 years, aside from being knocked out against Chidi and Jaquani, he's been solid. He's got a win over Dulce. He's got a win over Jordan Wright. He's got a win over Abu Azader. So now this is definitely the toughest fight he's had in the last 3 years, aside from that Jaquani fight. I mean, Marc-Andre has been a very, very, very popular underdog pick of the week this week. The odds open offshore Hernandez minus 150. And now he's minus 205. It's a tough call because I think that Barriault's a live dog here, just based off his cardio and his toughness. But despite going back and forth all week, I'm going to take Fluffy to win the fight. I don't think it'll be easy for him, but I'm going to pick him to win the fight. Now, the first bet that stuck out to me was the finish only line. He should not be minus 175 on finish only line. Oh, it's up to $2 now. I knew that number was wrong. So it's up to minus 200 now. And it's probably going to continue to climb. He's an overwhelming favorite over Marc-Andre. If there's a finish in the fight, it should be Hernandez. So that minus 170 price, that was all week long. I didn't mind it. Minus 200, I don't like it as much. But that was a good look. The play that Gavin likes in this fight, he probably thinks that Hernandez wins, but Marc-Andre round 3 sub at 80-1 at PointsBet. He thinks that Fluffy could gas in the 3rd round and that Marc-Andre can get the sub late in the fight. I don't know if that's going to happen, but now that I've just told you about it, are you going to let us hit it at 80-1 and you not have a piece of it? No, you're not. So that's worth $10. That's probably worth a pizza. But aside from that, I don't really love the fight from a betting perspective at all. All right, next fight. Tanner Boser, Rodrigo Nacimento. We haven't seen Tanner Boser since June of 2021, so a little over a year. Last time we saw him, he beat OSP, but he's had 3 fights canceled on him in the last 15 months. So it's not like he hasn't been trying to be active. He's just been unlucky. So of all these middle tier heavyweights like Marcin Tybura, Boser, Spivak, Ivanov, who's another guy that I'm thinking of? All those mid-tier heavyweights, he's one of the better in that group. He's on that level. I think that because he's undersized, he's got a big speed advantage on most people that he fights, aside from the elite heavyweights. So I think his hand speed is good. Footwork is good. He does carry power. He throws a ton of volume for a heavyweight. And we should see some improvement listen, we haven't seen the kid in 15 months. And he's only 31 years old. Like literally just entering his prime for a heavyweight. So I think that we will probably see him be at his best. And when you consider that he could put you down or he could easily win a fight on volume, there's a lot to like, in my opinion, with Tanner Boser against low-level heavyweights. Nacimento is a low-level heavyweight. Tanner Boser, when active, is a top 15 guy. Go look at the list right now. You can't tell me that he's not a top 15 guy. He is. So now, like Nacimento, he's a striker, but his big problem is if you're going to make your money on the feet, bro, then you need a chin that's good enough to weather a storm, and you need fast hands in the pocket, especially against somebody that can move. And Nacimento has neither, and he's got 5 minutes of cardio in him. Gavin likes Nacimento. I don't. Me and Diego are we're on Boser here. Now, you can't take him on the money line. I mean, it opened minus 220, and right now he is a minus 190 favorite. So what I did was I bet him. I threw a half unit on Boser by knockout at plus 140, and I threw a half unit on Boser by knockout or decision at minus 150. So as long as he wins, I will break even. If he gets the knockout, you pick up both. So I don't mind that bet. It's not one of my favorite bets that I made, but it's a bet that I made. Now, I think the best bet on the board is the Joe Pyfer versus Alan Amedovski fight. I gave out 2 Rum Pure Bet subs, Joe Pyfer and Contender Series, at minus 110, because I've known of who Joe Pyfer is for about 3 years. I knew he was UFC ready, and I knew that once he got on the roster, he would be a problem. And he blew through. He blew through the Contender Series fight. He blew through his debut. He has looked very good so far on this level. And if you know anything about him on the regional scene, he could win all ways. He throws the volume that he needs. He can knock you out, and he can submit you if he takes your back. Now, as much as I like Joe Pyfer is as little as I like Alan Amedovski. Alan Amedovski is awful, really, really bad. We've seen nothing from this kid in his 3 fights in the UFC that make you think that he is ready to deal with someone that is going to come at him as ferociously as Joe Pyfer will for the full 15 minutes. I don't see how this fight gets out of the first round, personally. But the bet that I made was Pyfer by knockout in rounds 1 or 2 at minus 115, which is at FanDuel. I think that is the best bet on the board in the UFC this weekend. And I think the second best bet on the board is that Jillian Robertson fight. So I think that you can parlay those together. If you take Pyfer in round 1 and Jillian Robertson by submission in round 1, that parlay pays you 10-1. I bet that for a half unit. And I took Pyfer in round 1 and Jillian Robertson by sub in round 1 or 2 at plus 600. I bet that for a half unit. I don't know why we didn't have a DFS show on the Rum Pure Sports side. I don't know if they cut the show, if we're doing it anymore. But that is a live parlay for people that would have watched that show for the betting angles. I would consider throwing a half unit on them because the plays that I mentioned in the Robertson fight and the plays that I just mentioned now are my favorite plays, to be honest, on the entire board as far as the UFC is concerned this weekend. So that is that fight. Andre Fili against Bill Algio. I mean, are we going to get in here? Well, we're going to pause this show for 10 seconds because I've been trying to cash this team total for 45 minutes. Second and goal. Last time we were on the end zone, it was a pick in the end zone. I need a touchdown to cash this team total. Second and goal from the 3. Shotgun, man in motion, the snap. What the quarterback just jumped up in the air and threw the ball out of the back of the end zone. Third and goal. I don't feel good about it. I don't feel good about this at all. Come on, be a quarterback. One time for the boys. Be a quarterback. Unbelievable. Fourth down at the 2. You can't make it up. At least we got him plus 10. But still, taking the 3. This team total is going to die. All right, Andre Fili against Bill Algio. Yeah, so I like Andre Fili. I like his striking game. I've liked him since he's come into the league. Back in come into the UFC back in 2013. His striking is awesome, and it's really built off a great foundation of footwork. It is top notch, and off that footwork, he can strike from the outside. He cuts these weird angles when entering the pocket, and he can either win a fight on volume or he can finish you. He's got 9 wins by knockout. He's got 9 wins by decision, and that's because he throws the necessary volume. On the ground, and what nobody ever talks about when they discuss Andre Fili is how good his top control wrestling and takedown game is. It's good. He quietly averages 2.5 takedowns per 15 minutes. And if you give him an opening, he will submit you. So he's well-rounded. He's got a gas tank for days, and he's got average fight IQ for the weight class. Bill Algio, I think that the best way to describe Bill Algio is the dude finds a way to hang around in fights and be competitive, even in the rounds that he's losing. So when the fight turns on a dime, he's there and ready to take advantage of it. That's the best way I can describe Bill Algio. Like, yeah, that's the best. He's a weird range striker that he looks sloppy at times. He looks clumsy. And that's because he's unorthodox with all the switching stances that he does inside the cage. And he's another guy that he can set a pace that not many fighters can keep up with. But Andre Fili is one that can keep up with him. But the big knock on Algio is his takedown defense is bad. It's about 50%. And you could take him down. You can get him down if you want him down. And when he's on his back, he can work and he can find submissions because he does have legit BJJ. But I think, like, if you really come at him with a heavy ground and pound game plan, you can pretty much break those submission attempts. So it's a close fight. It's a good fight. The odds open offshore. Algio minus 160. Right now he is minus. Oh, I'm sorry. This line crossed over. Algio opened the favorite at minus 160. Feely now minus 125. I agree with the move because Feely has the advantage in this fight because he can either fight on the feet where he probably has a very, very small edge in striking against Algio, but where he has a huge advantage is that wrestling game and that takedown game and that top control game. So that's why I'm going to pick him to win the fight. And it feels like a decision. Both of these guys are tough and they're hard to get out there. So I'm going to lean Feely by decision plus 165. You can throw a half unit on that and a half unit on the money line at minus 125. As long as he wins the fight, you break even. If he wins by decision, you cash both. The split prop is live in this fight also. This can be a competitive fight. It wouldn't shock me at 4-1 because Feely has a few split decisions on his record. He tends to fight in really, really close fights. So watch out for that. All right. Chidi and Jaquani, Gregory, Rodriguez, co-main. Yeah, Chidi and Jaquani has looked good since coming over here, since that win in LFA against Torres. But the level of competition that he's faced has not been great. He beat Dusko Todorovic, who has now lost 3 of his last 4. He beats Mario Souza, who went 1-2 on the Contender Series. And Torres, that Torres fight in LFA, Torres has now lost 3 of his last 4. So the competition hasn't been good. The one solid win he has on his record is probably Marc-Andre Barrial. But even though the competition has not been phenomenal, he has been winning in dominating ways. 4 straight knockouts now for Jaquani. And he's a powerful Muay Thai striker from range that has crazy knees, crazy elbows when he's in the clinch, and he's just dangerous in the pocket. His grappling game is probably a bit more underrated than people give him credit for, but his big issue in this fight is that his grappling game is going to be nowhere near the level of Gregory Rodriguez, because that's basically Chidi's big liability here. Now, Rodriguez is like a meat and potatoes boxer, but another guy that mixes in takedowns really well, averages 2.5 takedowns per 15 minutes. And I think that his winning and losing this fight is totally predicated on whether he will go in with a takedown heavy game plan. If he will, I think he sets himself up really well to be successful. If he doesn't, I think he's got an excellent chance of getting knocked out if this stays on the feet the whole way. And that's really the fulcrum of the fight, I think. So the odds open offshore, Jaquani minus 145. Now he's minus 130. I think that both guys can win the fight. I lean that this does not go the whole 3 rounds. So I don't mind, like, you guys, there are not many good parlay pieces on this card for people that are trying to get the price down on somebody. But I don't mind under 2.5 rounds minus 190 as a parlay piece. I guess that's okay. It's a tough call though. Like, I think I'm gonna lean with Rodriguez. I'm gonna say hope that that's the game plan that he goes in with, because if it is, he's probably going to be successful, probably. But I mean, in terms of finding an angle in the fight, there was just nothing I liked at all. It's probably going to be a total avoid spot for me. But I don't mind the under 2.5 rounds as a parlay piece. All right, main event, Cory Sandhagen against Song Yadong. Exciting fight. It's a main event where we basically have a lengthy kickboxer in Cory Sandhagen that cuts crazy angles, that flies in the pocket from all sorts of ways, against a guy that's just a great boxer that is short and stocky. And in order for him to be truly successful, probably has to be in the pocket more than Sandhagen does. So stylistically, I think it's an interesting fight from that perspective. And for me, I just think Cory Sandhagen's the better fighter. I just think that Song Yadong is probably going to get lulled into following Sandhagen around the cage while Cory stays on the outside and just picks him apart. That's how similar to what Bobby Whitaker did against Marvin Vettori at times in that fight. So, initially when I was looking at this price, money line, minus 195, it's basically been that way all week. Initially, I was like, man, that price seems steep. But I'm not sure it is. I think that number's probably right. I think that Sandhagen's striking style is set up stylistically to have the advantage. And I think that the fight's going to probably be on the feet the majority of the time. So if you want to knock 20 cents off of that price, you can take him by knockout or decision at minus 175. That's probably the route that I would go. I haven't decided if I will bet the fight. I already like the spots that I like, and I might not add a ton. But that's the line that I would bet to back Sandhagen. And the hedge on that, Song Yadong feels KO or bust to me. I don't think that he will land the necessary volume to win a decision against Sandhagen. So he feels KO or bust to me, and you can probably get his KO for around 4.5 to 1. So I think that's your hedge off that Sandhagen KO decision prop. But aside from that, that's it, boys. Target the Pfeiffer fight, target the Jillian Robertson fight, in my opinion, and then start looking towards college football, NASCAR, and the NFL, because those are the two spots that I think set up the best for us to make some money. And that's it. There won't be a NASCAR show tomorrow because the race is tonight, and we just did the NASCAR show 2 hours ago. So if you guys want to hang out, the Sports Keg YouTube channel, head over there at 4 o'clock. I'll be live all night long, live betting the card. the race. Coop will be on. The boys will be on with me for college football and UFC. And then tomorrow from 12:30 until 8 o'clock, I'll be live with NFL Live Line over there on our YouTube channel. After, I know JJ has a show from 12 to 1 o'clock. After that's over, head over and live bet with us. We should have had a crazy week last week. We ended up making like 4 units, but man, if the Colts win, if the Colts hit the field goal, that's a 5-unit swing. We probably would have made 9, just on and on and on and on. So, but all in all, we can't complain after the first week. And that's it. I'll be back next weekend with UFC and NASCAR videos like normal. And I hope you guys crush this weekend. If you're going to crush, do it responsibly. And I'll see you guys next week. Later.